Hey everyone, welcome to the CyberHub Engage Podcast. We have a great episode today on workforce development, the human aspect of cybersecurity, and so much more. I have a very special guest in the studio, and it's going to be an awesome episode today. Before I do that, and before I take my shot of espresso to get myself going, my last two guests don't drink coffee. So I'm going to have to start, fixing the requirements for the show. You not only have to be a CISO, you gotta like coffee. Nespresso will never sponsor me again, Jeff. They'll never sponsor me. But I will have a shot of espresso. We're gonna be right back after this message from our sponsor.
I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Get Smart Eye. That's Get Smart Eye, like your eye, EYE.com. It's a new security company that's focused on your privacy. How many of you guys have eyes around watching your screens, your phones, your tablets, no matter where you are? It can be your own office, an airport, a train station, a co-working space, and even a coffee shop, right? But there's some documents and some information that really needs to stay away from prying eyes. That's where Get Smart Eye comes in. They're using the latest biometric technology to give you complete control over the documents you send and who sees them. Whether you're viewing them yourself or sending them for someone else to view them, the Get Smart Eye technology ensures that whoever's seeing it is the right person. And should someone who shouldn't see it grab a look at it, it gets the document to disappear and won't reopen it until it verifies the identity of the person you sent it to. So to get more information, go to getsmarteye.com/James. Again, that's getsmarteye.com/James. Again, getsmarteye.com/James.
Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have you here. You're the president of CertNexus. You guys are a kind of a startup in the cyberspace, but more of on the education side, right?
That's correct, yeah. So we were actually incubated in our sister company for the past 5 years. So I've personally been involved in cybersecurity from a human development or workforce development for nearly a decade. The past 5 years, we've been developing certifications. Prior to that, we were developing other training materials to try to develop the skills and knowledge of cyber professionals. And then we formed CertNexus last year.
And when you talk of kind of like skills, it's awareness and technical, right? It's a mix of both.
It is, yeah. We have a firm belief that good cyber hygiene or cybersecurity is really the responsibility of the entire organization. So obviously, people are very familiar with cybersecurity professionals, whether it's a SOC analyst or pen tester, et cetera, those types of job roles.
Right.
But the fact is that cybersecurity really starts I shouldn't say starts, but it really encompasses the entire organization, including the end user. So you think about it, there's statistics out there that show as much as 95% of the hacks today start with an end user, right? Knowingly or unknowingly doing something. So we look at it as awareness for the entire population, and then providing more in-depth skills and knowledge base for specific security roles, as well as moving out into IT professionals and other stakeholders that are involved in cybersecurity.
You said you guys kind of, in your previous firm, you guys started incubating CertNexus 5 years ago. What did you guys see 5 years ago that led you to really kind of completely dedicate to CertNexus a year ago?
Yeah, there was a gap in the industry. So if you looked at a lot of the knowledge and certifications at the time, they were focused in two areas for management. Right. So there's some great certifications out there for
like
management.
The CISP and
CISP exactly is a great example of that from our friends at IC². And then also there was focused on really red team. Right, so you saw a lot of ethical hacking, pen testing, and in fact, some were even equating hacking in cybersecurity. Right, the two to be synonymous. Right, when the fact is that we all know that ethical hacking is a tactic to help prevent against future incidents, and the fact is that cybersecurity encompasses so much more, so many more job roles, and so many more approaches, tactics, strategies, et cetera, beyond that.
You're absolutely right. It feels like now you're starting to see that kind of expand. Yeah. As I was preparing for our interview yesterday, I spent some time last night kind of looking at, our friends at ISC², CompTIA, all these other ones, and we were introduced by my good friend and our good friend Lee Marar from Outcert,
Right.
and he's just a gem of a guy.
Yeah, he is.
And he does so much to try and get the skill gap. And Outcert, what they're trying to do is get that skill gap kind of filled in and get more people involved in security and kind of building that career path. Because it feels like what's being sold today to people is you're either a hacker or you're a CISP,
Right.
and all the middle piece of it is kind of I don't want to say blurry, but cloudy.
Yeah, it is, and that's where we saw that gap exactly, James. Is what kind of those blue team activities, right?
Right.
So what are the defensive activities, response, analysis, right? Active analysis, and so a lot of those, again, from the mindset of an individual, right? They're thinking I'm either a hacker, I'm essentially preventing the hacker. It's kind of all this militaristic kind of view of the world. But the fact is there's so much else that's happening, both procedural from a technology perspective and human intervention. And that was really a gap in the human development side of this space. So that's why we focused on that, and we developed a certification, CyberSec First Responder, CFR, and focus on that. And also looking at really what we consider the 3 phases of a potential incident. So it's before, during, and after. And a lot of it was focused on really kind of passive analysis at the after,
Right.
and not a lot during. And the before stuff was that kind of those red team activities, right? So we kind of wanted to look at it more holistically.
It's interesting because you lived quite some time abroad, right? You were in London for a while?
Yes, I did, for almost 4 years. Yeah.
How'd you like that?
It was a great experience, phenomenal. The world is so much smaller when countries are the size of U.S. states. So
I think the world's also nicer when you've got so many different. We live in Atlanta, so I complain about traffic here all the time.
Right.
But it's one of those where over there, you grab the tube, you're anywhere across the city in 10, 15 minutes. I mean, it's really not that complex. It's so easy to get around.
It is. It's interesting, James. Today, we both live on the opposing sides of Atlanta, and it took me almost 2 hours to get here. And I could get on a train in London in 2 hours. I'm in Paris.
Right.
Right. So
you're like, I'm in a different country.
Right. Exactly.
I'm getting a baguette and a cup of coffee.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, it is. So it is, and it was great because you have those cultural differences.
Right.
Which also, even in our industry, they become more apparent, right? That even if you look at privacy and data, right? The way we are as Americans, right? We are, enjoy our freedoms, and part of those freedoms are we give out our data very readily.
Right.
Right. And
we've done that for years, even before the internet. People forget that at the mall, filling out, I remember being in high school,
Yeah.
right? And you go to the mall and they have this card drawing with the slip, and you're filling out your phone number and name. And
right. Yeah, exactly. You're giving all that, personable, identifiable information, PII, to, like you said, at the mall. And so, and in Europe, they still are willing to do that. But now with GDPR and that regulation, now they also have the expectation that I can manage my data. So if I wanted to remove that data, or I want to edit it down, I have the ability to do that. So it's interesting that it's, we're all part of this Western world, and we share a lot of, culture, language, etc. But even now there's starting to be this divide in, hey, around data and the security of that data. We all want it to be secure, but there's an expectation there that, the individuals are more empowered in regards to their data.
See, so I kind of disagree there, because I told you I spent a lot of time in Europe, and I was not only in England, I was in Poland and Hungary and Romania and the Czech Republic and Russia and all these different places. And I feel like here we're willing to sell our privacy for a chance. I feel like that's the same over there. The one thing I always disagree with GDPR is this control over privacy.
Right.
I agree that it gives you the illusion that you control your privacy.
Yeah.
It's an illusion. And what I mean by an illusion is I can go to this company and say, forget my data. And if you don't forget the data, I can go complain to the government, and then the government can go and investigate and find that company and make money. I don't get any of that money for my data violation.
Right.
I just get to get that company in trouble and pat the government's bottom line.
Right.
And more so, last night I was at a, was it last night or the night before I was at an event, and I was talking to someone from from a governmental entity.
Right.
And we were talking about the $5 billion Facebook fine, about GDPR, about privacy, and I go, listen, here's a fact. OPM was breached, they never got a fine.
Right.
I go, and people actually died from OPM.
Right.
No one got a fine. No one went to jail. There were there were a little bit of congressional hearings, but those got buried pretty quick.
Right.
You know why? Because government is never going to find government. Like Bulgaria. The ultimate test of GDPR's credibility now lies in the small country of Bulgaria. Their IRS was just breached.
Right.
Is the ICO for Bulgaria going to fine the Bulgarian IRS for their GDPR violation?
That's a good question. It really is. And it's interesting you said the illusion, because I agree with you to the extent that the ability as an individual to be able to have an impact. And the other thing that I think is interesting is that, you know, companies are being penalized for something when they're a victim, right?
My point exactly.
So that's interesting to me, is that concept of, you know, so Facebook, yes, there's things that Facebook could or should have done differently, right? I mean, that's debatable. But maybe but there's been awareness brought to that. They've, you know, supposedly changed those behaviors. And you could, and let's not pick on Facebook, it could be any company, right? And as long as they make a meaningful effort to change those behaviors and try to secure that data, right? Because Facebook or any of these organizations want to do that, right? Because they trade in data. Right. Right?
That's their game.
It is. Exactly. So the fines are, I think, intended to create certain behaviors, but I think actually just the market pressures will generate those similar behaviors, right? It's the awareness that this is happening.
It's one of those where I feel like the fines, I gave an example yesterday, and I'll give it here even though I'm doing it later on my Goodbye Privacy podcast as well, is you lock your doors and you lock your windows to your home. You left your blinds open. Someone was walking by your house, saw that your blinds were open, saw a nice TV and said, wow, they've got a nice TV. Grabs a brick, breaks into your window, breaks your window, walks in your house, steals your TV with other valuables. You come home, you go, oh, someone broke into my home. You call 911. The police show up. They go, hey, Jeff, great job locking your doors, great job locking your windows. You know what your fault here is? You didn't close your blinds. See, had your blinds been closed, he would have probably never broken into your home. So we're going to fine you $1,000 simply because you forgot to close your blinds. Next time, Jeff, close your blinds. That's what GDPR is. That's what I get. The FTC fine of Facebook. Absolutely get it. That was a misuse of data. I get it. $5 billion isn't a big number for Facebook. But Facebook wanted to get this saga over with, and for them, writing a check for $5 billion to the FTC was better than litigating this for years and years and years, because they weren't sure what kind of political pressure or regulation was going to come later on that might impact them even worse, or it's a gamble. But they did what they did. But theirs wasn't a data breach; it was a misuse of information. That's one thing. British Airways, though, on the other hand, here's a company that wasn't reckless. The $700 million Equifax fine, now that's recklessness there. You can attribute some sort of form of recklessness there. They didn't have proper procedures and policies in place. They didn't safeguard data appropriately by any mean of the standards of a company that size. If you compared them to their peers at TransUnion or Experian, their cyber programs were, these guys could go to the moon, these guys could barely get a plane off the ground when it comes to their cyber maturity. I get it. And I think they actually got away cheap at $700 million.
Agreed.
That was reckless. They were reckless with their data.
And I think ultimately that's what GDPR is attempting to prevent, right? I think
But was British Airways reckless?
No, but I think right now they're trying to make examples of businesses, and I think that's unfortunate because, the largest brands are being targeted and, and that's where the complaints are being filed
Tax
against.
them.
Right.
Tax them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think over time, there'll be some normalization of GDPR, and it'll be less about fines and more about, rigor in your standards and processes and how you operate your business, which I think is good for all of us, right?
Right.
But from a data perspective, I mean, but it's ultimately, I think we're going to get there, but I think they have to put these, essentially impose these large fines to essentially gain both the
money.
Money.
I mean, let's not try to paint a picture any other thing than what it's really after. They're after money.
Right. Yeah.
These governments have huge national debts.
Right.
They're underfunded, and these major corporations have, you don't like it, go to Ireland, say, hey, Ireland, get rid of your tax haven. Don't be a tax haven in the EU, please.
Right.
Even out the playing field.
Right.
But don't go after these companies with this privacy bill that really does nothing for individual privacy, because it doesn't. And I have actual facts. So I can choose the right to be forgotten. I did this with a bunch of my friends out in England.
Right.
We said the right to be forgotten. The second you re-engage that company, all your forgotten data comes back up. You know why? Because it goes from the data controller to the processor. The processor still has shreds of your data.
Right.
Because technically, who needs to forget you? The controller.
Right.
The processor doesn't really need to forget you.
Right.
Right. He can still keep trace amounts of your data.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're right back on the radar. You're still getting the same ads. It's all there.
Right. And I think, the fact is, going to the ads too is right. That's some of the things that we appreciate about our data being there, right? Is the personalization of our web experience.
Right.
And so it's interesting because you want that, but you don't want, there's a lot of stuff that comes with that, right? So, whether it's on the internet or robocalls, et cetera. And I think most people would be okay if you remove all that noise that's a nuisance, right? The call at 7 o'clock at night on your phone, or the persistent spam, et cetera. And if you could get rest of that personalization of your web and beyond experience, I'll call it your device experience.
Right.
I think the world would be great. And I'm starting to flip. I came in here really hard on GDPR because I thought it was, I think the tenets of it or principles of it are good, but yeah, I think to your point, and you're changing my thinking, which is why we do this, right? Is that it's really, I think it's the concept or idea of it's good if it was to do the things that people really want and protect businesses as well as individuals, right?
Right.
That'd be the ultimate.
It's interesting because when you talk of what organizations go through, Equifax, reckless, they made it easy for someone to get in and get their data.
Right.
They did. I mean, I have friends that work at Equifax. I know these guys. They're good people.
Right.
But the corporate culture at the time didn't really address security.
Right.
Right? But I feel like that's the role of where government has to come in and look at these credit bureaus, like they look at, Southern Company, and go, you're critical infrastructure.
Right.
We need to help you. And support the business. And I'm not saying do it for free. I'm not saying take our taxpayer, but you can go to these large corporations and you can get a bill through to have them pay a cybersecurity tax that is supported by Homeland Security and supports CISA's mission.
Right.
And create teams within CISA that support critical infrastructure business on a, 2%. If you took 1% from every company that you consider to be critical infrastructure,
right,
you would fund a very good department in Homeland Security that could support businesses, and in turn, those businesses now develop skills that go down to the smaller businesses, and it's a trickle-down effect.
Right.
I mean, one of our biggest challenges is small businesses are the number one target for cyber attacks.
Right.
These guys go out of business. We're seeing that now with AMCA,
right,
the collection agency for LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics. The medical healthcare, about 25 million, people were impacted by that breach now, and the number keeps increasing because so many people used AMCA for collections.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a small call center. It's a collection agency. What is it? They get the data.
Right.
Then they call the consumer and they say, hey, you've got a $120 payment you need to make here. You haven't made it. It's going to go on your credit.
Right.
Let's work out a payment plan. Why aren't you paying it?
Yeah. And I think that's what, some of our regulations do, right? We go to that lowest common denominator. And I think to your point is if we built some type of infrastructure to support them in a more meaningful way as opposed to penalize them. And I think, unfortunately, we've taken the other approach, which is, we're going to try to shape behavior through penalty,
right,
as opposed to fund it. And I agree, and it's small businesses, and this is where we work, we see a lot with just in the human development part of it is, some organizations, we'll take just some Atlanta-based organizations, Coca-Cola, UPS, whatever it may be, right? And those organizations, I'm not intimate with them, but I'm assuming they have well-staffed security organizations.
You would hope so, but
right,
yeah.
You would hope, right? And they may or may not. I don't know for sure, but you would think they would. But as you start to get to that mid-tier and that bottom, it's SMB, that small business, is that they don't, right? It's typically, you may have an IT guy, right? That IT guy, or person, I should say, that IT person is now your security person, right? And it may not even be someone with a really distinct function as an IT person, right? It may just be whoever has, the greatest aptitude for technology serving in that role. They may not have the resources to outsource it. And so that does, there's many small businesses that they may, some don't even know to be concerned at this point, right? Until it happens, right?
Well,
and especially, those that, and data is becoming more and more important to every company.
I think there's so much noise around that. And part of it is also the challenge within our own cybersecurity industry from a vendor perspective. How many vendors can you name that address small businesses? Yeah. Very few.
Very few, yeah.
Malwarebytes, Symantec, the antivirus stuff,
right,
the VPNs.
Right.
Now, on every podcast I listen to, you hear a different VPN company saying, hey, use VPN. Well, VPN is just one part of cyber hygiene.
Right.
It doesn't solve all your problems.
Right.
It's just one part.
Yeah, and it is. And I was at a conference this spring, and there was I won't mention the company, but there was a CEO of a technology company, and said, the fact is, it's also it's so confusing to a small business, right? Because there's literally, hundreds, if not thousands, of companies now that are providers of software or hardware technologies aimed at cybersecurity. And that crosses dozens of different types of applications. And so, you think about it as a small company, you go back to what you know. Okay, I know I need to have something on the desktop. I know I need to have something,
router,
right? A firewall, and if we have people that, external VPN, right? And so they go to those things, but those things are no longer sufficient. And the fact is they could probably add other technologies, but is that technology going to better protect them? And it comes back to the knowledge within that organization and the awareness, right? We a great example. We're a small business. We mandate cyber awareness training every year for every person in our team. They all have to receive a passing score for us to be fully compliant as an organization. It's something we impose upon ourselves, and it's worked.
And that's for everyone in the organization.
Everyone in the organization. And the reason why we do that, it's a great example. Someone in our finance team, they were going to log into the bank, and all of a sudden a window popped up and asked them to provide their information prior to logging into the bank. And she noticed the irregularity of that, and she immediately went to our IT team, and they came over, they disconnected it from the network, and they found that there was a keyboard logger that had been installed on our machine. As a small business, someone that having access to our bank, could be catastrophic to our business, right? So, but the fact is that she was, as part of the awareness training, she was realized, she understood that, hey, this is not normal activity. And she said prior to having that awareness training, she would have just put in information like, oh, the bank has another screen now. It's probably another layer of authentication, and I'll just input my information. Mm-hmm. So I think it's even in small businesses, it's important for them to understand that there's ways that obviously technology is important, and I don't want to diminish the importance of technology, but you have to understand that ultimately it's people that are operating that technology, and those people need to have some level of awareness.
That kind of brings us to I think our topic of choice today, which is really people.
Yeah. And
it seems more often than not, people, like you said early on in our conversation, 95% of cyber attacks happen because of people, whether knowing or unknowing. Right. It's people. It's someone clicking a link, someone connecting to a wireless network.
Right.
It's one of those. It's just an innocent thing. I'm in a hurry. I got to get something done. My internet is slow because someone's jamming something,
right,
so that I can go directly to a free Wi-Fi system that's, perfectly right then and there so that they can get access to my device. And we kind of get that, but we look at a lot of the news and media around the workforce shortage in cyber. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of noise around it. Mm-hmm. How do we start even getting anywhere near solving it? How do you see that taking place?
It is a real issue. Some people will say that the cyber skills shortage is hype, but it's really not. I mean, there's been government reports that have come out from NICE and others that state there's over 700,000 cybersecurity jobs in the U.S. and over 300,000 of them go unfulfilled today.
Yeah.
Unfilled. And that's going to just grow. I've seen statistics that 5-10 years out that's going to be over 1 million. And I think there's several reasons why. One is we go to the same pool of people.
Agreed.
Right. So there's a lot of poaching that happens between organizations.
All day long.
Right. So
all day long.
And understandably, so. But I think that's one issue. The second issue is that we look at the same pool of people that are not yet in the profession. It's a very homogeneous pool, right? It typically is male, white male, someone that has a computer background, whether it's a CS degree or some other has shown some proficiency in if not cybersecurity, at least within the broader spectrum of IT. So, and what we haven't done is we haven't looked at it from the perspective of, what are the skill sets or characteristics? I always go back to aptitude and attitude. If someone has an aptitude for technology, we were talking about it earlier, right. You're self-taught, I'm self-taught, right? We had an aptitude for it. I had a liberal arts degree, right? I had no reason to be in the technology profession, but I had an aptitude for it. And I had the right attitude, right? I wanted to learn and I wanted to continuously learn. And as we know in the cyber profession, you have to want to be able to, continuously learn.
Right.
And then it's looking at, other characteristics that make for good cybersecurity professionals, depending on what job role they're going to fit in, because it can vary a little bit. But it's right, someone with a good analytics, right? Someone that is typically, can be structured, process-oriented, detail-oriented, et cetera, those things. So those are just characteristics, and you can find them anywhere, right? I look at Israel. Israel's a great example. Israel's a nation of less than 9 million people, right? So it's the size of whether Virginia, New Jersey. It's smaller than the state population of Georgia where we sit, right? And you look at the number of cybersecurity companies that have been founded and operate, and many have been since acquired from Israel, right? Of a population of 9 million people. And some will point to the military background, right? So intelligence, security, but it's also what they've done is they've invested in people, but they've also seen characteristics from the people. And what they haven't done is they haven't boxed themselves into this homogenous box. They've pulled from everyone, male, female, right? And then as we look more broadly in the world, right? It's not only gender, but it's race, it's age, right? And we start to open up that pool and say, hey, what is the pool, and what are some job roles where people may have some of these characteristics that maybe crossover, and how do we then enable them, through skills and knowledge to do that. And then I also think it's making it more accessible to people, because I think also people think that, cybersecurity, they think of, what you see in the movies, right? These hackers that are doing
with hoodies.
Right.
If I see another picture
right.
of a hacker with a hoodie,
yeah,
I am going to ban that page.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so they, and so I think a lot of people don't understand this is a profession, right? I mean, how many 18-year-olds are, leaving high school, going to college, and know that they can become a SOC analyst or become a pen tester, right? Or whatever it may be, the role. How many of them know that or are aware of that, right? They know they can become an accountant, they become a teacher, they become a doctor, et cetera,
lawyer, et cetera. Yeah, the traditional jobs.
Right. So I think some of it's just, I think it's opening up, looking at a broader pool, and then also I think it's part of us, as a society saying, hey, STEM is important. That now they're talking about STEAM, adding arts into that because of the not the critical, but also the creative thinking skills.
Right.
And then and then getting people engaged as well.
I think the other challenge we have, specifically, you brought up Israel.
Yeah.
I think there's one thing to be said. We took a delegation to Israel last month of CISOs, and we didn't do the vendor show. Right. We went and we met with other Israeli organizations of how they operationalize cyber. So I met with banks and toured their SOCs and fusion centers, and we were at the Israeli CERT in Beersheba, and we went to a few classified facilities where we got to see the cooperation and the ecosystem between government, enterprise, small business, and vendors. And that ecosystem, I feel, is what makes Israel successful. Because if you pinpoint to one thing, you go, what's one reason so many companies come out of Israel? And it's really easy. Government has a problem. What do? They tap industry right away. Right? Industry starts working on a solution. We were in Beersheba. We had a presentation by Dell, EMC, talking about some of the work they do there. And they go, yeah, we have contracts here that we're doing with IBM and different companies that are within this ecosystem. And you hear that and you go, so to compete? And you go, not here. He goes, not in this ecosystem. We're not competing. We're solving problems.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it is, and I think it is, I think you and I have discussed this before, is one thing that I enjoy about this cybersecurity industry, it is collaborative. There is this sense, I think, it does get siloed into companies and, with competitive ambitions. But I think at the individual level, there's this sharing of information and this willingness to work together.
On an individual level, if you have that relationship, I trust Jeff, Jeff trusts me, we share information.
Right.
But if Jeff and I today aren't sitting in the same facility, in the same building, we're not, we're not sharing every single problem we hear about.
Right.
I could have a solution for a problem you're hearing about for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks.
Right.
You hear the problem, you go, what do we do with it? And I could already have it, but we're not talking about that same problem.
Right.
That information doesn't exist. And I'm not talking just about proximity.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about here, legal is involved in everything when it comes to cyber.
Yeah.
And over there, lawyers don't care. Right? Because, and I think that's the difference, is in Israel, it's corporation over, it's like, I'd rather be secure and cooperate than worry about a lawsuit.
Right.
And here, we're so worried about a lawsuit.
Yeah.
We're so worried about all these different rules and regulations and all these things that come in place that lawyers have taken a front seat in cybersecurity decisions. There are CISOs who can't call the FBI to talk about an incident because legal will say, no, you can't call the FBI. We don't want the FBI in here. And people don't understand. The FBI isn't coming to investigate you for it.
Right.
They want to find out who's doing it and go after them. They don't care. They're not going to put your name in the indictment. They're not going to say, Jeff called us.
Right.
They don't care. They're trying to find the perpetrators of it. They're trying to just find patterns and then report those patterns upstream so it hits, DHS, NSA, and DOD so that those people can take action.
Right.
And that's not the case here.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, James. You just made me think about is that if we treated it more like, say, the flu epidemic, right? Right, because that is a collaborative approach from medical professionals that are paid by different organizations, but there's a common, I guess, focus or effort, right? And it gets beyond the legality of
who's selling the flu shot,
the vaccine, right? Exactly. And you think about it, in some ways, cybersecurity is much like the flu, right? In the fact that it mutates, right? I mean, we're always playing catch up, right? Each year we're trying to guess what the next strain of the flu vaccine is going to be, and we're doing the same thing in the security profession. So it's really interesting. You're making me think about this. Is if we have that collaborative effort that rises above corporate entities and even government entities, right, and allows us to be more collaborative. Because the fact is that it is a pandemic, right? Cybersecurity, right?
But we did that as a community when WannaCry hit.
Right.
I think most people forget that when WannaCry started coming, when WannaCry went live, that miserable day a few years ago, people were on their feet.
Right.
Different operation centers. The UK National Cyber Center was, started sending out CERT teams to handle it, trying to get hospitals back online. It was a concrete international effort. On the U.S. side, you had Health and Human Services Secretary Operations Center.
Right.
People don't know this, but the HHS has a Security Operations Center, a Secretary Operations Center. They have a SOC that has Homeland, Army, Navy, you name it, FEMA, anything and everything you want there. It's a beautiful center. And I was talking to them and I go, so how do you guys deal with cyber incidents? And I go, same way we deal with a hurricane.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah.
We have partners.
Right.
And we start spreading out the message and we go, hey, we're seeing a strain of attack on these different IoT devices. Pay attention, and it goes downstream. And if you wonder why WannaCry didn't have as big of an impact in the US versus the EU, look no further than HHS. They're the unsung hero of how WannaCry didn't impact the US because they saw it at 3 a.m. and by 4 a.m. they had notices out to everyone.
Yeah. Talking
about there's a cyber attack going on targeting healthcare facilities, put all the hospitals on alert, put all the major medical clinics on alert. So you had less major victims than all the major hospitals that were impacted in the UK where surgeries were delayed and people, that's just, fact is we've done it here already.
Right.
But we do it on emergencies. It's like, we're not doing it as part of our everyday culture.
Right.
And that's the difference between, saving money and making money. And that's the difference between being successful against cyber and failing to really address the threats. And hackers know it and take advantage of it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, and it's a really interesting thought pattern because to your point, we're responding to it, right? Much like we do everything, right? Natural disasters, et cetera, which it's great that we have that capacity to do that. But the prevention of that, and as you said, if someone found something and be able to share that more broadly, right, it starts to narrow what is possible for essentially the nefarious hackers to do to essentially their success rate at anywhere.
We kind of spoke a little bit about this whole workforce challenge, and you brought up a bunch of really good points. Is you don't just need technological people, you need other people. I've heard the claim of saying we need sales and marketing guys, and this morning in our 60 Seconds of Cyber segment, and yesterday I shared this on LinkedIn, a lot of people say we don't have enough women in cyber.
Yeah.
And I go, percentage-wise, what are we expecting? Are we expecting a 50-50 split? Are we expecting a 60-40? What's the right number of women in cyber? And I don't think anyone can answer that.
Yeah.
But I will say this, on a leadership level in the federal government, we have more women in leadership roles today in cyber than men.
Right. Yeah.
So
the not to get political here, but the Trump administration, the two leaders of the FBI Cyber Directorate are women. Mm-hmm. The NSA's new Cyber Directorate, the leader is a woman.
Right.
The CIA director, woman.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Her cyber team is led, I think it's 70% women.
Right.
I mean, I know that from a little bit of information, it's not public.
Right.
In that aspect. So we do have women who are in leadership positions who are breaking ground in cyber. And I'll kind of bring that to another point I want to make. Yeah. When we were in Israel, we were at Tel Aviv University Cyber Week for a day. And that afternoon, they had a breakout session for women in cyber. Yeah. And it went very interesting. So we're going to have a breakout session just about women in cyber. And one of our delegates was asked to speak at that event because she's a woman.
Right.
I said, great. So her and I get to the event. 80 people, all women. Me and one other guy are in the room.
Right.
Me and the CEO of Cyber Reason.
Right.
So only two guys in the room.
Right.
The guy, CEO of Cyber Reason, was there with his female staff. Right. Of not marketing girls, of not sales girls, of developers, people that are in charge of product. Good job for Cyber Reason. Right. I mean, they really do a good job in terms of diversity, and I see that all over Israel, not just Cyber Reason, but right. Checkpoint, their VP of product, their VP of product for 30 years has been Dorit Dor, and she's a woman. So, I feel like whenever we talk of, kind of like this shortage ago, are these just headlines? Because if you want to do women in cybersecurity, mm-hmm. Don't make it a side event.
Right.
Make it part of your agenda.
Right. Yeah.
Work so that 40-50% of your speakers are women.
Right.
Put them on stage and make them seem equal to their peers, to their male peers.
Right.
Don't put them in a side room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call it Women in Cyber and hope that you're going to attract men there, because you're not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because you asked what's the right number, and I'm not going to profess. I mean, we know the global population's nearly split, right? It's right. Almost, and so it varies year to year. But and I've heard the numbers roughly 12% of.
It's around 20% is the last number I saw.
Okay, so it's still a fifth, right? And so 1 out of every 5, which I would say is too low. I don't know what the right number is because it's how many, but I think the challenge is that we haven't, we continue to, more males are attracted to STEM type professions, and, and young girls show the same aptitude for those essentially studies at a young age as do males. And then it starts to split. And I think some of it is the environment. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the tech culture, going back to the hoodies, et cetera, it's been very male oriented. And I think in making it just more accessible to everyone. And I would go beyond just the gender, right? I would look at, race, ethnic, religious, whatever the background may be, age, right? It's also typically a younger profession, right? I mean, I know when I go out to Silicon Valley, I feel like, I'm, someone's, most of the people's parents, age, right? And so it's a very young profession, which is nothing bad about that. But it's just, I think there's so many people that could be making themselves available to the profession. And I agree, you can start with half of the, population being female, but then it's all these, other backgrounds that I think if we, again, focus on it, but also I think to your point is make it just inclusive. Just say, hey, you know what? We're all here. Let's all be working towards the same goals. And as long as we're making it available, I don't have the answer how to do that yet.
So I don't proclaim to have the answer to everything. Yeah. I feel like part of the challenge in cybersecurity, I think specifically in the US, and I want to talk to you a little bit because you spent some time in London about how they view security different from maybe we do as Americans, but I feel like part of our challenge is
we're measuring these diversity groups and different statistics in the workforce, we're not really looking at it from the very beginning. You're right about culture. Men, hoodies, hackers, most of the time are men or appear to be men, but you could say the same about, different aspects of human. I mean, you go to a warehouse, you don't really see women driving a forklift. But you also don't see, well, we have a shortage of forklift drivers, why aren't we getting more women there? Same thing with truck drivers. I think, I don't know if you do a lot of road trips. I do every once in a while, and I'll stop at a rest stop, and the only line at the women's restroom is all the women that are stopping at the gas station to use the restroom. None of them are truckers. Right. So, are we saying that? I'm not advocating that we don't need to pay attention to these numbers. I think they're very, very important. But I think the other part of it is it's organizational. It's cultural. It's you've got great CISOs. 2 of the 3 largest airlines in the U.S. have female CISOs. Deborah Wheeler at Delta and at United, Heath, I forgot her first name. 2 very good women in very good CISO roles, that know how to do it, but and do a very good job at it. And they're not only, there's women in these CISO roles, they're excelling. Part of it has to be is those women are hidden behind a curtain. They're not talking. They're not inspiring others.
Yeah, and I think to that point too, I mean, ultimately, you want to just see a person as a person, regardless of their makeup, right? But it's just that entry point, and a lot of it is at a certain age where we start to narrow that. And I think if we focus on that, and then you start to have this broader pool that enter the workforce with similar skill sets, it helps us. Now, I think we're going to have to probably, over the next decade or potentially longer, we'll have to drive that at a professional level, and that's some of the things that we're focused on as well. But over time, you hope it just comes, it's that funnel is just getting wider and wider and wider.
I completely agree with you. I think the other one piece of this whole dynamics of diversity in cyber is the sensitivity of cyber to foreign espionage at a corporate level. Is I hear this, you don't hear it on big forums at big stages, but when you get a CV of someone who's an international, not a national citizen, who is here maybe on a worker's visa, and they want to work in cyber, you're less likely to hire them. Because you're concerned that what they're going to learn, who do they really work for, you're unable to do really proper due diligence on the person or really vet them before you give them access to your system. And that becomes an issue.
I heard a very, you could say, controversial opinion that cyber is going to become more nationalistic. That
it is.
It's that because of that, and it's not just because of the cyber, espionage, et cetera, but it's just even to and GDPR brought this to the forefront is, where's your data housed? Right. I mean, most organizations. I was actually doing a presentation in South Carolina, and I was speaking to this woman who was responsible for a third-party relationship they had where they stored all their student data. And I said, where do they store their data? And she said, you know what, I don't know. And I said, that's probably something you should know. And she said, I never thought about it. She goes, I just thought, this company does business across all of the U.S. and, works with, literally hundreds, if not thousands of schools. So it had to be safe.
Well, it's like pen testing. So pen testing today has become what IT help desk is 10 years ago, 20 years ago, where, it used to be all American. Now, a lot of it is getting outsourced. And I had a conversation with a CISO last week, and he goes, we got an offer for a quarter of the price from India. And I go, do you really want to trust that place in India to break your system? And do you really trust they're going to tell you everything they found? And do you really trust that the guy over there who's making $600 a month, who I know you just hired. If I went and offered him $1,000 to disclose all the stuff, and then I get him to omit some stuff out of the report so I can take advantage of it for $1,000, you don't think he'd do it?
Right.
I go, he'd sell everything for $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's, it's unfortunate because it is starting to pit, again, we're pitting people against people, and we don't want to do that, right? So how do we get to, it's kind of going back to what we said earlier, is elevating it, right? So it goes beyond national boundaries, beyond corporate boundaries, et cetera. And I don't know.
Well, it revolves.
I don't know how you do that.
It revolves around, for example, you would trust a UK company to do your pen testing if you're in the States, or a UK company would trust a US company to do its pen testing because of that relationship, because of that. It's not only political, it's national, it's been indoctrined. Right? It's the Five Eyes.
Right.
The US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK.
Right.
And sorry, who am I forgetting? Ireland? Yeah, Ireland. I think so.
Yeah. And it's interesting because...
What? Israel? That's the 5i plus 1.
Yeah. But it's interesting because it shouldn't be that way, right? But I understand why there's concerns why it is. But it's interesting because, I've done a lot of work in India, and I've spent a lot of time in India.
Right.
As well as Israel and other places, and when I look at it, it's really there's competent people all over the world.
Absolutely.
And there's people that would unfortunately sell themselves all over the world.
Edward Snowden was an American.
Right, exactly. So, it's interesting how there's this shift, and part of it I think is what people see in the movie theater, or watch on the nightly news, and there's things that are happening that we don't know about, and the things that we know about are cause concern. But it's, again, I think going back to our earlier conversation, is how do you elevate that entire conversation and that entire approach so you get it to where we're fighting the flu epidemic, right? Or whether when we fought globally, the HIV or whatever it is, right? The plague, or not the plague, but other types of things, dysentery, whatever it is, and we do that, and it starts to raise it above it.
How do you elevate this? So you can look at it from multiple different points of view, right? We can elevate it through education,
right?
Common core education. I think, when we talk to our friends at IC Squared or CompTIA, those guys are multinational.
Right.
What they train a U.S. individual is what they train someone in India, Russia, Brazil, you know what I mean? South Africa, UK, or Norway. They all get the same certification. They all go through the same training material.
Right.
So the competency level, you say from an education perspective, is the same. And I think that's different, right, from medical school. Like if we just compare this one-to-one to healthcare, right? Most people want to go to a U.S. medical school because they teach the best. They've got the best equipment. You get the best education. You come out, you're ready to go. 12 years, $500,000 later, you can go and work 18-hour shifts at hospitals and make money. Right? Never desired to be a doctor. I salute the people that want to do it because to me it just seems like suicide. Right? In cyber, I feel like where our level playing field is, and you see that all over the world, right? A certified ethical hacker is a certified ethical hacker. It's the same set of skills. Right. It's that same thing. That's what you guys are doing at CertNexus. It's the same. You don't have a different training for the U.S. than you do for the U.K., than you do for Brazil, than you do for others. It's the same. So here's how we're elevating it. Number one, we've leveled the education playing field for cybersecurity professionals.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So we don't have that Harvard is better than, the University of Birmingham in England.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't exist in cyber.
Yeah, and that's true. And that's a really good point too, James, is that, and that's one of the things that, we've seen, and when we entered this certification space, was that it is global in nature, right? I mean, we have the same products we have that are certified by the Department of Defense in the U.S., is the equivalent of the NSA in the GCHQ in UK, is in Malaysia, in Singapore, et cetera, Bahrain, wherever in the world. So I agree with you. It does level, and it also makes knowledge more democratizes knowledge too. So it's essentially we're leveling that entire playing field because everyone can have access to it, and so which I think is great. But then it's like, it's taking it from there and taking it to that next level. And how do we do that so there's more sharing of data?
But you see that with the multinationals, right?
Yeah.
Big companies have offices in the U.S. and India and Indonesia and Bahrain or the Emirates and Israel and Norway or Sweden, Germany, because guess what? You're localized. You're taking a global idea and you're trying to make it as local as possible so that the local population can use it.
Right.
That's why, specific softwares have multiple languages, right? It's not just English. Otherwise, it'd be really easy. You just do it all in English. But no, you need to have it in Polish and German and Portuguese and Spanish, but Spain Spanish, Mexican Spanish, Argentinian Spanish, right? All these different dialects of even Portuguese from Brazil to Portugal are two different languages, right? Yeah. The Italians, those lazy dudes never want to do anything if it's not Italian, right? The Greeks want it in Greek, the Turks want it in Turkish, the Chinese want it in Mandarin, and the Russians want it in Russian. And so you've got to have a, no matter how competitive it is, and I think that's the picture. I think this is the, as you say, the nexus of our of the challenge is I can create a product, but if I want to give it to the entire world, I got to be able to trust the rest of the world to work on my product and customize it locally. And the same applies to security. So we trust today, you trust today, CompTIA trusts today, IC Square trusts today, CISOs trust today, that a guy who comes with your certificate or someone else's certificate is going to be on the same level playing field as everyone else in his organization. That's that trust. And that's the challenge today in security as it becomes more nationalistic. Can we actually open our eyes beyond the blinders of nationalism? I'm worried about these guys stealing my corporate espionage, having access to my system admin. Oh, this guy's last name is Daichenko. That's definitely Russian, right? I'm not doing this Daichenko thing, right? And can I really just hire him based on his skills, trust that it's going to be good, and then take him out and really benefit my organization. And I think that's the challenge that we deal with today. And I think that's where there is a distinct need for not only national cooperation between government, enterprise, small business, to companies like yours, like CertNexus and ISC Squared and CompTIA. It was no different than after 9/11. With flight training. Think of going to get your pilot's license pre 9/11. You could show up day of the course, pay him the $100, get on go through a classroom, study for about an hour, get on an airplane with an instructor, and learn how to fly. Today, go get your pilot's license. It's a different world.
It is.
Post 9/11. So the question is, are we in the cyber world waiting for that to happen, for someone to take action? And I hate when people tell me, well, because until that happens, you're not going to see dramatic change. Or can we employ change through our own? Right? Through, hey, you're starting to look at information and go, well, one of this data is either too good to be true or something's going on. We should probably talk about this.
Because I think, you bring up an interesting idea here, because it is when we've managed cyber incidents, so it's obviously impacted companies. There's companies that have lost their entire business or been severely damaged, et cetera. But it's been managed at a level that I would say crime is managed, right? It's we expect a certain amount of crime in the U.S. anyway, and it's too much, right?
Depending on where you live. I mean, in Chicago, you expect a murder every minute. And in other parts of the world, that's not the expectation, right? So, but in the U.S., I think we've managed that, cybersecurity incidents almost in the same way. It's like there's a certain amount of, turmoil that's going to happen. As long as it's below the threshold, we're all good. And I think to your point is, does something truly catastrophic have to happen, or does it have to rise to a level where we start to address it differently? But it is, I think, something that. The fact is that I always say that as long as there's people and as long as we have technology, we're going to have cybersecurity incidents. And the reason for that is that there's people that always, whether power, greed, ego, boredom, whatever it may be,
they're going to continue to do things nefarious, that are nefarious to others. So I look at that and I say, but it's the same thing. If we really take a focus on it, how do we reduce it to levels that are, like we said, hey, you know what, we're going to eradicate, certain diseases, or we're going to eradicate, other, whatever it may be, and we focus on it and we do it. And we haven't really done that. I think what we've done with cybersecurity is we said, hey, we're going to manage it.
You're absolutely, no one's talking, very few people are talking prevention.
Yeah.
How do we prevent?
Right.
And it feels like the whole thing is, well, we can't prevent it.
Yeah.
We can't prevent it from happening. And I kind of tend to challenge that.
Yeah.
I go, you're right, we can't prevent it, but can we reduce instances by 90%?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a white paper now with a few other CISOs who are pilots.
Yeah.
And we're comparing cybersecurity to aviation.
Yeah.
We're saying if we made aviation the safest mode and the fastest mode of transport in the world today,
right. Yeah.
Why in the world can't we do the same with cyber? What did governments and regulatory agencies do with aviation to prevent aviation disasters so that aviation can continue to grow and become a mode of transportation? Because it was an effective mode of transportation, no different than technology is. Today, you can't go off the grid today. You can't not have a computer or a smartphone. And if you do, you don't live in the world of today.
Right, yeah.
Right? So technology is a crucial part of our world, like aviation is.
Right. And it's interesting because with aviation, you think about it, is going back to our commentary earlier, is that responsibility starts with when they actually manufacture the aircraft.
Correct.
Right? It's who operates the aircraft, who maintains the aircraft,
Correct.
Stores it, et cetera, right? All those things. And so and it goes back to our conversation earlier, is that, it's the end user, right? We don't talk about software developers, right?
Well, in GDPR, if you look at everything you just named, GDPR covers the last two.
Yeah.
The guy who gets on the plane and the guy who operates the plane.
Right.
It's ignoring the guy who makes the plane, the guy who maintains the plane, the guy who parks the plane, the guy who pushes the plane back,
right,
the guy who flies the plane.
Right.
It's ignoring all that.
Yeah. And that, and that's what we saw as another gap in our industry around human development, was around software developers.
Right.
Right. There was no way to certify, and not even let's talk about certify, because that's validating skills, but essentially making awareness that, hey, software developers are writing millions of lines of code every day. Right. And now we have, where, with containerizations and modules and widgets and whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of reuse. Right. And so someone writes one piece of bad code that can get proliferated through, vast numbers of organizations.
Like Ebola.
Right, exactly. And so, when we were looking at it, and again, we were looking at these gaps, in the space, and we're saying, gosh, where are other places? And we're saying, God, no one's really focused on the development community, and development communities where a lot of these vulnerabilities originate, right? Because they're writing code and they're getting
ground zero. Right.
And they're getting paid to write, develop, features and make it accessible to users. What no one is thinking about is, what is the vulnerability that it may be part of that, right? And so one of the things we focus on as well in that human development, going back to the airline example, is it's not just the pilot, it's not just the but it's who's manufacturing, right? So and so we've looked at that as well.
What's the entire supply chain? We see that now with the F-35 program with Turkey. So Turkey used to produce a few components for the F-35 program because of the S-400 missile defense that they bought from the Russians. Now they've been withdrawn from the F-35 program, and their manufacturing of those components has moved somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. And so that's a really interesting idea, and I think we just have to start to think about that.
But that started from government.
Yeah.
Right? Government said, how do we secure the aviation? Right? Because it's a key component of travel for our people. Without aviation, we can't cross the ocean as fast. We can't get from New York to San Francisco as fast. So how do we make it so that it's faster, safer, and easier for everyone? And they started regulating every aspect of it. And like you said, from the plane manufacturer to the components, right? The companies that make parts for Boeing are under a regulation as well.
Right.
And so everyone carries a piece of the burden.
Yeah.
So can we do the same in cyber? Can we make it so that, like you said, the software developers carry a bit of the burden?
Right.
The company itself carries a bit of the burden. The cybersecurity vendors carries a bit of the burden.
Right.
Right? The consultants and the other people carry a bit of the burden. The user carries a bit of the burden.
Right. Right.
Can we, instead of focusing that burden on one spot,
Yeah.
hey, British Airways,
Right.
secure everything
Right.
and operate your fleet
Right.
and maintain your fleet
Right.
on your own.
Right. Yeah.
And no one's going to help you and no one else is responsible.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you hire people
Right.
to help you and they fail, the best you can do is sue them.
Right. Yeah.
But the reputation hit, the business interruption hit, you've already taken.
Right. Yeah.
Now go litigate it and let lawyers make more money, as if they don't make enough.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I think that's our challenge. How do you see us really kind of solving the human factor weakness in cyber? I mean, you kind of spoke earlier about awareness, but
Yeah.
kind of how do we, is just consistently awareness training, is that the key? I mean,
I think that's part of it. So I think there's a couple angles from it. So from the profession itself, if you're looking at a security professional or an IT professional, I think one is, and we've talked a little bit about around standards and regulations, but also there's standards. A lot of people don't know it, but in human development on the certification side, certifications you can, there's the varying levels of certification.
Right.
It could be the two of us, putting our heads together and say, hey, we're going to create a certification and, bang something out, right?
Hey, everyone, get our certification. Jeff and I are doing it now.
Right.
It's only $2.99.
Right.
We promise we'll buy you bourbon.
Right, exactly. Free bottle of bourbon with everyone. So we could do, but then there's, so what we've done is we've developed some of our certifications to an ANSI accreditation 17024, which accredits the process.
Okay.
And so I think what that does is, from a profession perspective, going back to, if you're a CISO and you need to say, hey, listen, I want to, validate the skills and knowledge of the folks I have or the folks I'm going to be hiring into my organization, is look at ANSI accreditation, because that is the gold standard. So if a certification has achieved that ANSI accreditation, that that you've gone through, there's been a rigorous development process working with practitioners to develop the scope of the exam items, it's gone through beta testing, et cetera, all those things. So that's been validated in the industry at a certain level. The other is that I think many times is that, we talked about it earlier, like hacking's been equated to cybersecurity. So there's a popularity contest among certifications, right? And everyone says, hey, I want to do something hacking related because now I'm a cybersecurity professional.
Well, it's what sells.
Right. And what you should be looking at from a CISO perspective is, what are the job roles I have in my organization and what are the tasks that they need to be proficient in? So if I can say, hey, I have a highly validated quality exams that are available to me, from those, which one are pertinent to my organization? So if I'm going to have an analyst, I'm going to have an incident handler, I'm going to have a pen tester, et cetera, then what are the exams that map to those job roles, as opposed to just saying, hey, if you have a certification, it's okay, I don't care what the certification is. It's from a CISO perspective, it's best to map that. From a broader organization, it is awareness, and it's continued testing of that awareness. I think what you'll see with a lot of organizations is they say, oh, we've trained everyone and they're good to go, And what we look at is we actually retrain everyone every year. And there's two reasons. One is, like, as we were making the analogy about the flu earlier, right? Is that cybersecurity is not static, right? The bad actors are not saying, hey, you know what? We've created everything we could create.
New
we're
form
not
of ransomware every day.
Exactly. So the fact is that you have to continue to re-educate. We as an organization do that on an annualized basis. So everyone goes through a compliance course. Everyone has to get that check mark. I say check mark and we use that loosely, but everyone has to prove that they have the knowledge they need to operate in our organization. And then you can test it. There's a lot of good phishing simulations out there and other types of simulators as well.
But is phishing enough?
It's not. I think, and some of it, it's interesting to me because some of it is I don't want to say common sense, but I think about it, when I, the last thing I do before I go to bed every night is I check to make sure our doors are locked, right?
Yep.
And I don't bring in, some, noxious gas that I don't know is, in from outside and inside. And I think what we do though is someone will bring a thumb drive in and not think about, hey, once this enters this environment, what can I do? Or, I stay at a lot of hotels when I'm traveling, right? And, you go to the hotels and they're like, oh yeah, we don't have a security, we don't have a password because we want to make it easy for everyone. And I'm like, yeah, you're making it easy for someone,
not me.
Not me, right? So, so it's those types of things. And I think it's just literally it's awareness because people haven't been taught those things, but we've been taught to lock our doors at night. We've been taught not to bring, store gasoline in our kitchen, those types of things. But people haven't been taught, so we have to do that, and we haven't done a really good job of that. And I think again, it's going to help on the prevention side. Is it going to reduce the number of bad actors? No, I think that goes back to your prior conversation. Is we need to empower CISOs to be able to go to, whether it's the FBI or there's state police or whatever, to be able to work with them to find to troubleshoot and start to target the bad actors. That's a different thing. But as far as the prevention side, it is you have to it starts with the end users and works all through the organization, and you can't just do it once. That's the big thing. Is
you hear that often, with various cyber with various cyber challenges. Is I train my guys on one thing, and they stick in it and they're kind of learning on the job, which I feel like is very, very effective, by the way. I feel like, if someone goes and he gets one cert, whatever it is, and he that's his foot in the door, and from there they learn on the job and they get better. Yeah. But the challenge for CISOs is obviously filling, I don't want to say the lower level. I think the analyst roles now is easily filled. Yeah. It's that third and fourth level within the cyber chain. I think level 1 and 2 now are very common. I think we're see it. You see it out of universities. You see it out of different ISACA and ISC squared and all those other ones. They produce level 1 and 2. Right. But I feel like no one's really talking about 3 and 4. And I feel like that's where CertNexus sits. You're kind of like on the third and fourth. Your theory, but you're also your certs are very also hands-on, are they not?
Yes, they are. Yeah, and we we believe that you have to have that hands-on practice. So if you were to sit a CertNexus course, you're going to spend usually 2/3 of your times with fingers on keyboards, and again the theory backing that. But for us, it's about putting that theory into practice.
Right.
And to your point, it's elevating that information. And again, there's some great certs out there that do some other very fundamental foundational things. But you need to, when someone leaves training, and again, I don't, training, we think of about this being event-based, and I look at it as it's continuum, right?
Correct.
And it's never ending. And so some of it's, we validate skills, but then, we change our certifications typically every 12 to 18 months because the world changes. So you can, whether it's recertify, retrain, whatever it is, or however else, job training, et cetera, supplementing that. But it is, and the fact is you can't sit someone in a classroom or, have them watch a video for hours, days, and just tell them about what it is. You need to give them the opportunity to practice it. They need to be in a simulated environment that's a real environment, and using the tools, and and actually working through, whether it's it's doing analysis or understanding here's an incident, and going to essentially actually defining what the incident is, how you would handle it, respond to it, etc. Those are in the real world, those are live activities. And you have to be able to be immersed in that environment if you're going to do it, right? If I'm going to teach you how to play baseball, I'm not going to sit here and give you the theory of baseball and hands and hand speed and weight distribution, et cetera, and then say, hey James, okay, we've talked about it. Now I want you to go and go to a game, because that's what we're doing, is we're putting people in the game, right? I mean, think about it. In the profession, you're going every day. You're now in the game, and you're expected to perform. And unlike a baseball player, if you hit 300, you're an all-star. Your employer is expecting you to bat near 1,000, right? And so it's one of those things where you have to be able to allow them to practice continuously, so that in a safe environment, so when they go into the game, they can do what's expected of them.
I feel like that's the best example I've heard about the workforce. Is we hire these guys in, we throw them right into the game.
Yeah.
Right, you come out for tryouts. You're not even going to spring training. Listen, man. You're on the pitch, home opener. Right. Opening day, ready to go, buddy.
Right.
You better be ready to bat, and
right.
and we want him to bat perfect. And I feel like that's some expectation. I feel that the other piece of it is CISOs really do want to get, I think, the third and fourth level, because I think CertNexus, you guys kind of. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll kind of make this last because we are running out of time. Yeah. But I will say this: you guys kind of sit like in a very good space.
Yeah.
Because you have all the other great certs out there that I think fill level 1 and 2. Yeah. You guys also cover the non-playing players, right? You guys say, "Hey, audience,
right? There's
a foul ball that's going to hit up here. It's going to knock you in the face.
Right.
So how about you pay attention?
Right.
Let's not look at our cell phones when there's a guy at bat.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because that foul ball hits you're going to be on Sports Center.
Right.
Right? That's great for you.
Right.
Right? You'll be a YouTube star.
Right.
But you're also going to be the moron who was sitting behind home plate looking at their phone,
right,
and got hit by a foul ball.
Right.
You guys also cover that piece, but you guys also take someone who comes in with that first and second level and are able to continuously train them to get them up to the third and fourth and other levels within a security organization.
It is, yeah. And then we also are looking, as we talked about, the manufacturers, the coders, right, the programmers. I mean, so we are trying to do some things that we saw weren't not being done in the industry. And, and again, we kind of looked at it as a collective because we partnered with some of these other organizations we've been talking about, and we said, hey, they're doing a lot of these things really well, but there's these things over here, and if we want to really look at it holistically, these things over here need to be done as well.
Right.
And it's become very complementary. And the certification bodies ourselves and, the IC squareds and others, we all work together. We sit on some committees together and working whether it's the federal government or private industry, and we come together because we realize as a collective it's better for the industry.
Correct.
And we really do. And back to your earlier comment, we need to elevate it, and that's what we're trying to do. And we've done that by adding the certs we do that, as you said, take some of those foundational skills and build upon them, add some new skills, as well as address, I like your, the audience, right? The spectator in the stands, right? So, in doing that. And it's really, we hope that with everything we're doing at CertNexus, but with these other organizations, that eventually we're going to have the knowledge and skills in the industry that then the industry can shape and make best use as far as prevention goes.
Excellent. Jeff, I want to say thank you for being here.
Thanks, James.
I really appreciate it. This was so much fun.
Yeah,
I think we could have gone on.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my watch, I'm like, we're like 20 minutes past.
Right. We've only named like 14 countries. There's like 200 more that we could.
Yeah, I mean, there's about 200 other. Let's talk about Myanmar real quick. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Great.
Thanks for being here. For those listening, watching, thanks so much for being part of the show and helping us become one of the fastest growing cybersecurity podcasts in the nation. Make sure you subscribe, share, check out CertNexus and Jeff and what they're doing. It's a great tool. You guys know I always have practitioners on the show, but after seeing where CertNexus sits, it's a great tool for CISOs, for other people to look at how do you take your existing workforce, build it up to the next level, but also how do you take your rest of your staff and really get them up to par on what you need. And Jeff's here local in Atlanta, so make sure you hit him up, CertNexus.com, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. That's it for today. We'll be back next week with more and a very special guest coming back. Very, very special. And we are going to have an amazing show. We've been talking about it for like the last 3 weeks, and we've put together amazing content for all of the CISOs out there. So that's it for today. We'll be back next week.